Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted. Today I'm joined by,
Nathan Nerdarch.
and today we're talking five ways to improve your riddle game in Dungeons and Dragons. Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with us. You can send your GM 911s to us or other viewer suggestions to nerdarchy@gmail.com. So Abel wants to know. He really likes using tricks and puzzles and those kind of things in his game, but he's struggling with the fact that he doesn't want to be like, oh, this has only got one option or one solution. How do you go about doing puzzles that have multiple options? So today we're going to talk puzzles. We're going to get into some of the do's and don'ts of it and see how things pan out.
Major thing with puzzles that I have found is that when you put a puzzle in your game and it is a pinch point to the entire adventure, or you can't get into this dungeon or out of this dungeon without traveling through this gate, and you put a puzzle, riddle, or whatever around it, and there is one solution and one thing they have to do. If they don't make the roll, if they don't think of the thing or the word, the word or the answer, you're stuck. Like, how are they going to get out? How's the adventure going to continue from here?
It can get really irritating if you want your players to do one specific thing and they decide they're not going to do it. It's in across anything. It becomes this major campaign roadblock that you have to make sure that when you're planning your sessions, you don't do. You have to avoid that. Never have the campaign continuing on a roll. And like, for some reason in my last session, I was like, oh, I want this thing to happen. And I had the character roll, and I'm like, why did I do that? Like, he was going to find it. Why did I make him roll? Like, it was so annoying. And
because you like the noise. You needed to hear the noise.
I like dice, but it annoyed me. And I'm like, I never had any intention of that happening. And the character did exactly what I expected him to do. And I didn't even need to describe the room. And he's like, oh, I'm doing this right away. And I'm like, that's perfect. It's exactly what I thought was going to happen. And then I said the worst thing. I'm like, make a roll. I'm like, oh, God. I couldn't take it back once the words left my mouth. But it was out there.
He was already rolling.
So I'm like, all right, doesn't matter what he got. Because that's the story. That's where it's going.
Just don't roll a 1, so I can just say it was really low DC.
But it was actually a halfling, so he wouldn't be able to keep the 1.
All right, excellent. So he was fine. Whatever he rolled was good.
So that's the first thing. You want to avoid that having things hinged on a die roll.
Yeah, no, so that's the die roll issue. The word issue is where you select, oh, I want them to think of a particular thing and do the action, or I want them to think of a word and tell me the word. Like it's a password, or it's the answer to a riddle, or you have to pull the 35th lever from the right because that's the answer to the riddle, 35, or the puzzle. Yeah, that's another thing. It's where it's like, this is the only thing that can happen, and if it's only one word or one direction to go, that can run into problems if they don't think of that exact one word.
So yeah, a specific and singular solution. If you are unwilling to accept that your puzzle or thing only has one way out, that's a problem, because you might just sit there twiddling your thumbs while the players, waste their time trying to come up with what's inside your brain.
It reminds me of when Gandalf and the Fellowship of the Ring, they're all trying to get into Moria.
Moria, yep.
And they're sitting there waiting for Gandalf to remember the password to get through the gate.
Now, in a movie, they show time passing. And one player sitting, one character sitting there looking on with rapt attention. That the character's like, oh, freaking throwing stones in this water. What the frick?
Yeah,
I'm so
the other
bored.
ones are like looking around, like.
and if you look at what they're doing, that clearly shows you that they are bored, and your players are probably going to be sitting around the table while the ones who actually give a crap about the riddle are trying to figure it out. So you want to put things out there that are going to be fun and interesting for the party, not just the riddle dude. So the third one, or the third issue that I see, is the thing to remember, that while some of us are blessed with higher intelligence and wisdoms and whatever have you, rarely do we actually have the mental stats that are listed on our character sheet. I can guarantee you, I do not have an 18 wisdom and an 18 intelligence. I don't have the ability to be like, oh yes, I've got this solved. I don't know whether I've got anywhere close to that. I have no way of gauging. But I guarantee you, I don't have the 16 intelligence and 16 wisdom that Relian has, as well as the expertise in all of these mental applications. Investigation, knowledge arcana, history. He's got all that stuff. He knows so much more. And if he gets into a situation where there's this puzzle, this riddle, he should be able to be like, oh yeah, that's this. But Ted is barely above average in those cases, in my opinion. So I don't know. I don't know how to be like, all right, Dave, what do I do here? How do I handle this situation? So I think you need to come up with, clues that are not going to just be like, oh, the answer's an egg. Well, that's pointless. That meant I rolled, I got the answer. That's no fun.
That turns it into a single roll skill challenge. Basically, it's boiling down. These are different types of challenges that are not combat.
Right.
But if it's just a single roll skill challenge, that's kind of lame, especially because it probably took you 10 times longer to think up or even snag the riddle or puzzle from somebody. So unless you're like lining 10 of them in a hallway, it's just going to be 10 die rolls later, even that. So, it is not a lot of time. So I feel that you want to have a little time pass, and you want it to be a bit of a challenge. But also, if someone just knows it off the top of their head, that you reward that player with that. Similar to if someone like, oh, I just crit this guy, he's gone. We defeated the guard, great. So there's issues with the single answer because it's too it requires that exact knowledge, which even a real life Relian would have difficulty knowing every single time.
Right.
There's going to just be some times where he never learned that
Yeah,
riddle.
he just doesn't know it.
It's outside of his expertise and skills of thinking about it. And then there's going to be times where the person you expect to make the roll fails it, and then you're stuck.
Yeah. So I would come up with, little clues, little hints, and come up with things that it's like, all right, if I think that the average person in my group could get it after 3 hints, I'll come up with 5 hints that don't directly say it's an egg or it's a door or whatever it's going to be. Think of things that are going to point them in that direction and have enough that it's like, oh my god, this is so obvious, why don't they see it? And after some skill checks that players can make, you could do it a skill challenge, and if someone could come up with reasons why this skill via the skill challenge ways does it, then you can give those hints. And that's a great way to actually guide them towards and be able to mitigate the situation that the characters might actually be more knowledgeable and more intelligent than the players at your table. Because you can role play dumber. You don't need to role play strength, dexterity, and constitution. You just say that it's happening. But when the words are coming out of your mouth for your mentals, you have to factor in how high or how low those are, and you can't go up. I personally don't know how to do it. I can sound more intelligent, but that doesn't make me be more intelligent.
Well, you got to take off your weighted hat and other things that are slowing down your mental processes. Put on your quickness glasses and then go. Well, yeah, because if you could act smarter and be passable, you would act smarter all the time, and you would just be smarter. So there's that challenge that just can't be overcome to a certain extent. So yeah, with Ted's talking about kind of like leading a pathway to the answer, either through word association, or you can give somebody, someone like, oh, I want to make an arcana check on this magical door, maybe there's and then that's like, oh, well, people who create magical doors usually leave themselves some kind of understanding through some glyphs on the side of what to remind them of what the password is. Just because imagine you're a wizard and you can't get into your laboratory ever unless you remember the dang password. So you're gonna have some kind of post-it note somewhere. So that could be something like an arcane puzzle that the person's very familiar with, and maybe you could say like, oh, well, you remember that spell book you found in the other room? It didn't have hints about the door, but it does now. And since they passed the check, they recognize, oh, Arcana stuff. I know wizards do this stuff all the time. They put it someplace so that they can get access to it. So you're like, oh, I have his book. I'll flip through his book. And then they can do investigation checks or other things. So you can kind of lead them towards it. So they're still playing a different type of encounter than a combat. It's kind of skill based, but it's also kind of player intuition. And it doesn't require you to know like the 500 or 600 riddles that everybody that's like super riddly knows.
And this is kind of where I was going to be leading with the next point, and that's to accept an alternate solution. So you might have a way of how the DM or how the players should come about the answer or how they should get there. But there's times that they're going to come up with something and you're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Accept that solution. If the players feel like, man, this is a really great idea, what about this? And it kind of fits or it's close, go with it, because they'll feel really great that they solved it without needing to go these other directions. All right, for instance, you have this magic door and you need a password to get through it. Well, what's to stop your wizard from casting Speak with Object? You talk to the door and you say, oh, did the wizard ever use a word to get through? Oh, yeah, it's Bella. Okay, great. You know the password and you can get in. Great creative use of a spell that isn't typically going to be used, but you solved the issue. Maybe that's how the wizard is actually remembering. It's like, crap, I never remember what it is because I change it all the time. I'll just, what did I use last time? Hey, there it is. Walk through the door. So that's why the wizard could have had Speak with Objects in a spell book. So I think that's number 4. And wrapping this off at number 5 is use resources. If you've read Tolkien, you've read all of the age-old riddles that people who play D&D are typically gonna know these ones. Avoid them unless your players would really get a kick on using those old ones. So there's stuff all over the internet, but I've got Tower of the Riddle Master, Quest for the Riddle Stone, and Lair of the Sphinx. They're all riddle books that I've picked up years ago. Every once in a while, I dust them off. I grab something that hasn't been used in the games, and voila, I've got something that my group hasn't seen in a long time. To my knowledge, none of the other players in my game have ever gotten these books. I don't think they've ever been looked at by the gaming group. I try to avoid that, but they're great resources. Nate's going to try and read them now. But I mean, this one's literally got, almost 40 some riddles in here.
You can probably snag them off of Amazon.
That's actually where I got them.
We have a link for that.
So if we can get Dave to remember to throw them in there, he's off partying hardy. But we'll throw a link to them if you want to check them out, or possibly other riddle books. But that's absolutely what you want to do. Don't take your time trying to come up with a riddle when there's so many other resources. If you want to, feel free. I'm not going to stop you. But if you want to streamline the process, you can look online or you can grab resources like riddle books, and you'll be able to do it so much faster, and try to find something that could be closer to what it is that you're looking for without having to go through the painstaking process of doing it yourself.
Now, if you did still want to make your own riddle, which I have done before, and I did it in my last game, Echoes in the Mirror, I would say definitely go with the accepting multiple solutions. If it can fit within the framework of what you had in mind, like if it's just one word, well, try and expand it. Can I have 3 different words, 4 different words that could work for this? Because that's going to allow, first off, you can say yes to your players. Oh yeah, you solved it. That was the correct thing, and you can also move it along without them having to get some exact word out of like all the words in the language.
So there you go. 5 things to help you deal with riddles in your game. If you guys have any other comments that you'd like to share to use riddles better and whatever have you, Put them down in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Go patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
So until next time, stay nerdy.